Thanks. This still strikes me as surprising. And I think, Ken, what would you recommend? I mean, to me, does this mean that people should stop spending a lot of money creating brand imagery, or?
Well, I think, I think the creative is extremely important. And actually, this question and answer appear on the Ask Ken site that you referred to. And, there's a lot of answers to questions on there. And, this was actually a question that was asked through that mechanism. And so, I answered it. You can read the whole article there. But it's, it's very important to get the creative right. And I think we'll get into some of this a bit later about what are the important things to think about in terms of direct response and branding.
Well, let me move on then. So, yeah, on the beach, back to the beach, Ken made another enlightening statement. And it's that online response is a brand metric. I think we need to hear some kind of tinkling chime that goes with that. But in other words, that to understand brand health completely, one would like to have access both to information about behavior and information about attitude.
Yeah, I think when you ask me about that, we think of branding. I think we've been traditionally thinking, well, the way that you capture that is by surveying a bunch of people and asking them their perceptions. Well, there's actually a lot of ways you can capture that. People have behaviors that demonstrate and imply that they've had a branding impact. And I also want to make a call out to Symphony. Any Symphony people here? So, yeah, Symphony it should also be thought of in this way too. And Symphony is interesting because when people have been impacted by a brand and their brand perceptions change, they might demonstrate that by what they say online. And so it's a measure of attitude, but it's also a behavior. And so I don't think we should box ourselves in and just say, branding is surveys, behaviors is, weblogs, but really it's just a mixture of them.
This is still kind of deep for me, so I want to walk us, and maybe for other people, I'm just particularly slow.
Why don't you show a few examples?
I'll show a few examples.
It may sink in.
Yeah, here we are. Ken's team brought for us examples from 3 campaigns that we actually both worked on. That is to say, there was a dynamic logic brand survey, and Compete also analyzed impact of online behaviors. Did this for a mobile handset company. Did this for Gatorade, pioneering sports drink, and we also did this for a campaign for a U.S. automaker. And these were picked not because they were unusual or atypical, but precisely because they were typical. And we wanted to understand how our metrics together might tell a story that's richer than they tell apart. So first, let's look at the mobile handset brand. This is a campaign for a handset, an online campaign for a mobile handset, if you follow, with some typical goals of such campaigns, increasing awareness for a new product. So let's take a look at the data. This is the result of the brand survey. And one of the main outcomes is that the campaign increased aided awareness, one of the primary goals of the campaign. The third pair of bars that you see there, when asked a question, do you recall, or are you aware of these brands? Gatorade would have been listed with several others. 90% of respondents clicked the box that said yes. The mobile handset, not Gatorade. Clicked the box that said yes, I'm aware. And among those people not exposed to the ad, in the control group, 86% were aware. So the conclusion is that 4 out of 100 people who otherwise wouldn't have known now know, and now are aware.
And what's interesting here too is that the parent brand had a very, very high awareness, 86%. And yet that was able to be lifted even more to 90. A lot of times when we see campaigns that are 85, 90% in terms of a brand, you don't see very much lift. So 4 is actually quite good. The model awareness was also fairly high, given it was pretty new, 41%, and that was lifted as well by a whopping 8%. And so those are great metrics to see. And people had ad recall. There was an incremental lift in people's ability to remember the ad.
And we saw with our analysis of the online impact, similar results, that the campaign drove remarkable increases both in visits to the brand site, which you see on the left, an almost twofold increase, and more than a twofold increase on the right in brand term searches for the product and for the brand. So again, me being the kind of slow one of the two of us on stage, I put them together. It looks like they generally agree, Ken, but it's kind of, for me, one-dimensional. I mean, is it just arrows all pointing up and some pointing down, or is it possible to derive insights that are more three-dimensional?
Thanks for asking the question. I think it is possible to derive three-dimensional insights, and I think some of the things that you can learn when you look at two kinds of metrics at the same time are things about the creative. You can learn about the audience. You can learn about the targeting, and I think I'm going to elaborate a bit on that as we get into more of the data.